Hi, this is Freya from Otherworldly, and this is actually another bento video. After a day and a half of agonizing and playing with the demo, I decided to go ahead and buy the Simone head from LeLutka. I've been rather reluctant to go for mesh heads in the past. I've got a few that I've used for photos, and they do photo beautifully. But I'm very particular about my shapes. Even though I actually have a lot of them and switch quite a lot between them, I have like 7 or 8 what I would call my me shapes, the character shapes that are based on roleplay characters from other mediums. I'm very particular how they look. Um, and none of the mesh heads have come anywhere near the style that I like. And then I have a lot of shapes I've made for various skins or for sale, and those are still within my aesthetics, I would say. And that has been a problem with a lot of the mesh heads that have come out. They've been a little too cutesy, especially on the profile. The Simone head is a fairly typical LeLutka head in its style, in that it is very model-esque. It's got those broad, high cheekbones and a very defined jawline. Something that I do like overall, so I figured that I am gonna be able to make some interesting shapes with this head, and I quite enjoy the process I found while I've been testing it of making shapes for a mesh head, because it is a bit different than making it for a static head, and I've been doing that for a few years, and I guess I feel I've exhausted some of the possibility or most of the possibilities. You can only push the mesh so far and so on. In some ways, the mesh heads are more limited. The sliders don't have as great an effect. If you take off your mesh head after you've adjusted a shape for it, you look rather scary underneath because you've exaggerated the sliders to get the same or a similar effect. The mesh heads, to be able to not deform and go lumpy, need to be more restrictive in how it uses the bones. The bones also need to be used for animation, so there are certain constrictions on what they can do. So you won't have one mesh head, even a bento-enabled mesh head, that is a one size fits all. You're going to need different base heads that have a different base style and can go in different directions. What I really liked about the LeLutka head is that when I put it on over a regular shape, it didn't look completely crazy. So it's not too far off from the base. It is an improvement on the base. It is a particular style within the base, but it's not totally crazy like some of the other heads where you've just looked like an alien, a deformed alien, basically, when you put on the head in the first place. Obviously, some of those can get very different looks, but the sliders get even more unpredictable. Here, at least, you're on somewhat familiar ground. And as I said, I like the general style of this head. It is also very well made. The sliders respond smoothly. There are no lumps and bumps when you push it in. I have some sliders that I've pushed quite far up or far down, and it doesn't do any deformations or any oddities. So very pleased with those aspects. The HUD is very nicely featured, and what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to do a little bit of camming around and showing you the head from different angles, and then I'm going to take a look at the HUDs or the HUD rather, and see what you can do with that one. So from the front, we're gonna go in a little closer, and the light will probably change a bit because I do like to have wind light when I do these, but it can be a bit unpredictable. As you see, it has, I think, done a nice job. I actually started with one of my character shapes for this one, and then tried to tweak it back to how it looked without the mesh head. It has a bit of a heart shaped with a smaller chin. The eyes should be more tilted. The outer eye corner don't do much. There's interaction between the outer eye corner and the eyebrow, so there are limits what you can do there, unfortunately. With Bento, you'd need a base head that had more of a tilted eye naturally to get that look, I think. But I managed to get a little bit of it, so I'm pretty pleased with that. Like the look of the nose from the front, it doesn't look too small. I'm not super sold on the lips, but obviously different skins will be able to change it a little bit. For me, the curve is a little too strong on the top. I prefer it to be a little shallower on the side of the lip cleft, and it is a little difficult to get around that even with skin looks, but they're very well made, and as you can see from the side here, there are no tendency to duck lip. And I can go quite small on the lips, which I really appreciate because I don't like big lips. And as you can see here, you have a nice, stronger nose. Again, I would have liked more effect from the upper bridge. I don't think you can do like a fully aquiline nose with this head. It would again probably take a head that was in its base pushed more in that direction. So, you know, if anyone's listening out there, I'd love to see heads like that. I would probably have to dig into my wallet again and buy those as well, because I need some of those stronger faces as well. The eye looks really good as well, the eye socket and everything. Like the ears. So the head shape and such, and what you can do with it, it's definitely a very pretty head, or a handsome. You can make it handsome, beautiful. You can see some shapes that are a bit more cutesy as well, so you can do that if that is your preference. And well, obviously it's symmetrical, so it will look the same from the other side, but you can get it in a bit different lighting here. Really like the profile that I've come up with here, I think. So we are going to next then take a look at the HUD. The HUD sits in this nice little box, which you can have either at the bottom of your screen, or you can go in when you open it. You can go to the fourth tab here, which has various sort of technical bits, and you can choose to reposition it to the top edge of your screen instead. I'm going to be keeping it here for now. If we go to the Essentials tab, that is where you have your main customization. You have your Glamour Fair skins, you have the options for shimmer, your eyeshadow, lipstick, brow lashes, and so on. My understanding is, I haven't really played super much with this yet, is that the shimmer and the blend will work on third-party lipstick and eyeshadow as well. For example, we could, or rather, I am wearing the system lashes now, or the lashes that come with the skin or the head, so I can change those. Nice and easy. I have more options with my fake lashes, of course. They won't blink with the eye, but I think that that would mainly be when I want to capture expressions or to capture a closed eye, so I'll probably be shifting between whether I'm using the head lashes or a third-party product like the fake lashes. You've got your hair base, and I actually saw that for some reason mine was on. I think it should be off now because it was the wrong color. Yeah, but there it's off. If you want to have I have a reddish one on, for example. Let's see if that gets sorted. There we go. We have that showing up under the hair. Maybe a little dark. I'll go for the lighter one here, the 4 instead. One problem that I've come across, it may be me missing some parts. As I said, I'm new to the LeLutka HUD, and I haven't played super much with the makeup options, but when I applied makeup from some third-party appliers or products, I wasn't able to get it off again because the appliers didn't have a clear button, and there is no clear button here that seems to work on. I mean, you can turn off the LeLutka options, so I think that a clear button would be something to have, something to just kind of wash everything off the face. Whether that should or there could be two options: clear all makeup, clear skin as well. I've seen that on some of the other heads, and I think it might need that because I ended up with some weird combinations where some things seem to be stuck around my eyes. As I said, it could be a user problem. I'll have to learn a bit more about it, basically. But if it isn't, a clear button seems like a good idea. Obviously, one of the big features of this head and one of the big aspects of Bento is the animations. For those who don't know, I'm not an expert on the whole process, but I did sort of follow the project. It started out as mainly being about, when it came to the head, about offering new animations for mesh heads. The idea of actually being able to make slider controlled heads was added later in the process. The animations were the main part, and sometimes you get conflicts between, and that's why they are more limited in what they can do with the mesh heads, the bento mesh heads, because they have to make room for being able to use the bones for animations as well. So the LeLutka head has some interesting options. You can have on mood selection, which means that it will shift through a subtle selection of moods and expressions depending on the mood that you've selected. For example, we are in neutral now. We can go to happy. And then it should be putting in, there's a little wink and a raised eyebrow. And it does it sort of just at a random interval. It does make quite natural, and these are small, subtle expressions, which I do like. The actual expressions that you have included to play, turn off the mood selection to be able to show the expressions. I'm so about them, to be honest. I find them limited in use. They're fun, but it's more like you play around with a little bit. Like, you've got your little Mona Lisa smile. You've got a bigger smile. If you want to smile for a photo, it's obviously much nicer than what you'd ever do with a system head. But a lot of them are very specific, and I think that I would have wanted even more subtle expressions, but hopefully there will be a lot of HUDs added on from various creators, being able to make furniture that the mesh heads respond to. This is a nice, subtle little like the better than you expression. Has quite a lot of attitude and just a very subtle movement, and that's the sort of thing I could definitely use for a photo. Some of the others just are a little too demonstrative in their appearance. Although the eyelash flutter can be a bit of a cute one as well. Obviously, if you catch it at the right moment, it might be just right. You have options for having it respond to talk. I don't actually have voice on. I'm recording separately from, so I don't use voice, so this won't do anything right now. You can opt to have your lips a little bit parted. Generally, I find that makes you look a little bit vacant, so maybe for very specific occasions. Eyelids, you can control the blinking, and then you have this one which is also fairly subtle, where you can give it a little bit more of a just an eye expression, like having this wide-eyed stare, which is quite pretty, I think. Or you can go a bit more relaxed and have this slightly heavy-lidded look. So that's not bad. You have some eye control here as well, although I tend to use my eye poser up here, have that one on all the time. So the built-in expressions aren't something that I expect to use a lot of, but I do like having this option for expressions because I hope there will be a large third-party market for making them, and having in particular props and such hooking into them and giving you nicer expressions, so that for some types of photos that you don't just have that slightly vacant dead stare at nothing, which can be the case with the system head not being animated. What else do you have on the HUD? Well, you have the personalize option where you can add in your own skin parts, your own specular maps, add on lashes, tattoos, hair base, etc. These have, obviously, as you see, a few save slots. There is a personal HUD for sale as well, I saw when I picked up the head, which gives you additional save slots, plus you can obviously have multiple copies of that one. So if you're into making your own things and personalizing setups like that, it seems like a really good addition. And then we have, of course, this tab with the various technical bits and pieces, layer transparencies, materials. Here you have the option whether you allow the head animations to be triggered by other products. So that'll be a good one for when there's furniture and such, for example, that want you to play a particular animation. So I think that gives you a bit of a sense of what the HUD can do. And maybe what I'll do now is just go over a couple of the different shapes that I've made, and they're not all going to look super on the skin, so we'll see if I'll have to switch out some of the apply another skin as well to give you a better sense of what they look like. So time to dive into the dark recesses of my inventory and see what I've got for shapes. I'm currently wearing my Maeve shape for Simone, and I've also got this one which I made, which is going to be a little bit more, as you see, this one has more cheekbone and makes more use of the wider jawline. There, stop that so we get the lighting on. It's a bit more severe, and the Kismet skin works okay. It's not quite what I would use for it. The base underlying shape actually was built for a detail skin, so it's quite a different style of shading, but I don't actually have any of those available as appliers, but this gives you a sense of how you can make the wider line. I think I may have managed to make this nose even a bit stronger than the previous. Yes, you have a little bit of a curve here from the upper bridge. Not as much as I would like, but it's there. And again, I have gone for a slightly tilted eye. Not as much as I would have preferred, but it's pretty good. Widen the lip a little bit, which smooths out this curve. I like the front of the nose, it's quite strong, and I like the broader chin, and the as you can see, when you do the cheeks a little bit sunken, it doesn't get as sharp and edgy as it would with a system skin. I should have one more as well hiding somewhere here. Yes. This one is I'm not quite as finished with this shape. You have to open up the eyes quite a bit if you don't want really small eyes. My eyes are normally around 40 in size and 40 in eye opening, and that the default on the mesh head is fairly tiny, so if you want a more open eye, you need to crank those sliders up quite a bit. Here's a more regular eye, none of the tilting. A bit in between the other two in terms of the width of the face. This one is done a little bit longer. It could probably have been even had less of the broadness of the cheek of the lower jaw and lengthened out a bit, but that is pushing it as far as what I've been able to do so far with this head. But hopefully those show a few of the options. I suppose I could go in here as well and just demonstrate a little bit on the sliders, what sort of options you have. Head size, of course, will work. Head stretch, so you can go longer, but then you obviously will have to work on that jawline as well. The head shape does quite a lot. Not at all as much as the default, but it's still, you can get quite a few different looks there. The egg head slider has a fair bit of effect, but actually when you look at the upper part of the head, the effect is not as strong, but it's probably a good idea because that gets really deformed on the on a system head. The length you can definitely mess with. Well, with that one right now, brow size can also give you some options. The I'm going to show you the upper cheeks from the front here. You can see how it affects the shading without any of the breakage that the system head will give you. The lower cheeks, not as much effect again. It's fairly subtle if you compare, but none of the breakage. The cheekbones obviously will move the shading quite a bit. So if you want the fuller look further down, you can say you can go all the way down to 0 and it's not going to deform badly. So less options, but less deformation. The mouth, as you can see, since I talked about that, maybe I'll show you a little bit what I meant, that you can't really, if you try and get a deeper lip cleft, it mostly pushes the sides of the lip cleft up and makes them rounder. If you push it all the way there, you don't have as much of a lip cleft, but on the other hand, you do have the straighter lines. So I think that slider is a bit tricky to, or those bones are a bit tricky to rig to, because I've seen them acting up on other mesh heads as well. But again, it depends on the head that you start with. What is the base shape that the creator has made? What else might be interesting? Obviously, you've got your chin options. And as you can see, the jaw shape is actually one that gives quite a big range. So if you're, I tend to do a lot of going back and forth between the head and the chin to sort of compensate and see what different combinations will do. The same is with the chin depth. You have a lot, this one, as you see, will deform a bit if you push it too much. But it's very good that you have those options, because it's important to be able to compensate on chin depth if you've used the stretch head, the head shape, or the egg head sliders. Jaw angle works on the skin, not as strong as you would get on the regular head. It mostly just moves up underneath as opposed to moving the jaw bone, but some mesh heads that I've tried have this, or the bento heads have entirely fixed there, so it's better than nothing. And the jut of the jaw, you can use that one as well. That one is fairly changeable, so if you need to move the chin around after pulling it in or doing anything like that. The chin cleft options do not work at all. There are no bones for them, so none of the heads will be able to add that. So there are definitely some of those limitations that basically, if a slider doesn't do anything at all, it is quite likely that there's no bone for it. Alternatively, the creator has decided that this slider, if I'm using it too much, or if I'm using it at all, it will interfere too much with some animations, and I need it for that instead. So there's a lot of compromising to be done, and that will have to translate to how you make shapes for these heads as well. A little bit about how I think about this and how I'm going to approach making shapes for Simone, which I think I will be launching into soon, because that seems like a fun winter holiday thing to do. I'll need to get some more suitable skins to try out to get different looks, because still the skins make a huge difference. And one thing I've found is that You really don't for skin makers. I'm actually going to go in and show here. You have a little bit of shading underneath the nose, which can give a slight bit of a mustache feel. I noticed that the Glamour Fair skins that they had ships with does not have any shading at all there. So I think that's a good one to think about if you're making skins for this head. It's very much designed to be able to work with wind, light, and shadows, and to cast those shadows rather than have them painted onto the skin, or just have them painted on very subtly. Finally, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit and just have a few words about what I'm wearing and where I am. I'm sitting on the Cheeky Pea item from the Deco Crate for December, a chase in the shape of a sledge, and this pose, however, is an or triple O. I think actually it's supposed to be a triple O Studios pose, because that worked best with having the head up and showing all the details of the face and so on for this review. The twinkling lights that are wrapped around me are a new main store release from Paper Moon. They come in blinking as well. I might show you that while I'm at it. Let me see if I can find my lights. Tangled Up in Lights is what they're called. And I'm going to switch to the blinking white lights. You also have, if you want to be really colorful, you have multi-colored lights that also blink. So you can be very festive, or maybe you want to be a little bit more gothy and go with this dark sort of purplish blinking instead. Back to the static one. And the lingerie is from Luxuria, and it is for the just opened Fantasy Collective round, which is a loot box round. So it has a gacha with regular commons and rares, and then a mystery loot box gacha for each vendor. This is the regular rare, so to speak, the solid gold version. And the hair is from Wasabi Pills, and it is for the round of the forest that opens today. And they've redesigned that event a little bit so that now you can either buy the pass into the event, which gives you all the items at a discount, or you can buy individual items as well. And I'm sitting in the little winter landscape on my sim with the decorations from Studio Sky and the foxes from Gian. And I hope this has given a little bit of an insight into Simone. There's been other great videos, as I've said. Strawberry Sing has a great one out, and there's no doubt going to be other really fabulous reviews. But I wanted to give some more thoughts on just sort of the shape making side of things for mesh heads, for this mesh head, and for mesh heads in general. So I hope that might be useful for someone.